Hello, Pastor Chris Laughlin, Messiah Lutheran Church. So the second of our two Bible studies for this week will be on Matthew 20. This is the parable of the workers in the vineyard. Jesus said to his disciples, "The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. So there appears to be some kind of town square or market square or something where you would go, some kind of hall maybe, where you would go to hire the workers to work in your vineyard. If you own a large piece of land, you're going to hire people to work it for you. And the usual daily wage is a denarius. Last week we heard about how one slave owed another slave 100 denarii. That's about what you would make in a day for a laborer. It is also approximately enough money to keep you in food for the day. So the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner. The landowner agrees with the laborers for the usual daily wage and sends them out into his vineyard. This is probably about 6 in the morning. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace. He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." So they went. So they went 3 hours later, probably. Probably the first group was at 6, the second group is at 9. And remember, this is a translation. They actually mean like first watch of the day, second watch of the day. It's about every 3 hours, right? So it's about 6 o'clock in the morning is the first group, and about 9 o'clock in the morning is the second group. So they went. He went out about noon and about 3 o'clock and did the same. So we've got a shift that begins at 6, one at 9, one at 12, one at 3. At about 5 o'clock, he went out and found others standing around, and he said to them, "Why are you standing here idle all day?" They said to him, "Because no one has hired us." He said to them, "You also go into the vineyard now. We don't actually know what's going on here, but we know this guy has been looking for workers since 6 o'clock in the morning, and then again at 9, and then again at noon, and then again at 3. So when he goes out at 5, and they say, 'Why are you standing here idle?' And they say, 'Because no one has hired us.' Well, they weren't there all day. What were they doing in the morning?" Good question. Still, the landowner sends them into his vineyard, right? When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to our translation says manager, a better translation would be steward, "Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first." Now the bishop says, and he's probably right, because the only thing I can think of is the only thing the bishop can think of. The landowner must be trying to make a point, because he could have hidden anything he was going to do by paying the people who started first. Start with the people who started first, pay them and send them on their way, and they would not have known any different. Now when when those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage, a denarius. When they had received it, Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. So people who started at 6, people who started at 9, people who started at 12, people who started at 3, people who started at 5, all receiving the same amount of money. The people who started first, people who started at 6, grumbled against the landowner, saying, "These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day in the scorching heat." But the landowner replied to one of them, "Friend," and I gotta check this out, because I asserted the other day that this was more like the word "look, buddy," because I think that's right. So I will look it up here real quick. It's Matthew 20. Although that might be from the parable of the wedding banquet. I might have my parables mixed up. It'll only take me a second here. Oh, it's the same word. So this is the word that Jesus says to Judas in the garden, right? Judas is going to betray him. Jesus is going to indicate who Jesus is by giving him a kiss. Jesus says to him, friend, do what you are here to do. And it's more like a look buddy than it is an actual companionship, because each of the instances, it only shows up in Matthew, but each of the instances are not necessarily actual, like real companion-y kind of references. Look, buddy, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? And they did, right at the beginning. Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? God is reminding us that God is God and we are not. We don't get to tell God what to do with what is God's. Our translation then goes on for the landowner to say, or are you envious because I am generous? Is your eye evil because I am good? Is what the Greek actually says. So the last will be first and the first will be last. Yeah, I mean, it does sort of upset and disrupt our sense of justice, right? That the people who work 12 hours would get paid the same as the people who worked 1. At the same time, the people who worked 1, well, the same people who worked 12 have known since 6 o'clock in the morning that they're going to make their money and be able to afford to put bread on the table for their family tonight. People who are hired at 5 don't necessarily know that. And we don't actually know their story. We know that they at least fibbed, if not told an outright lie, to the landowner when they said, no one has hired us. Well, you weren't here to be hired, right, people. I've been here all damn day. Should probably edit that out. Well, you aren't here to be hired. I've been here all stinking day. Yeah, just background for Sunday's sermon. So, God does not act the way we expect God to act, and we don't get to tell God how to act. Thank you for joining me for this second Bible study. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I hope you will join us again next week.